So we've had a lot of different kind of games come up over pretty much the course of all of our lives, ones that have like huge impacts on us. So they can be games that range from like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, different kind of games that take, part in different parts of history. A lot of those games also have like huge meaningful impacts when it comes to the way that they start, and that's how we remember them. The Last of Us is like a really great example of that, from its first part to its second part. I ain't never seen nothing like this.
There's no way he's gonna come back alive. They're gonna tear this man to pieces.
よく聞け。腕に覚えのものあらばいでよ。なんだ、すぐにだ。我こそは足立春信。かの足立義信が五代の末裔なり。
Oh. Oh!
This the first 5 minutes of the game, y'all. So everybody, welcome to the video. I just want to start out by going over a list of the pros and the cons, everything that you usually see in a review, but more so than anything, a lot of this video is pretty much going to be me nerding out over this game because, quite frankly, it was like one of the best games that I've played of the year so far. Overall, I would say that if you have not played Ghost of Tsushima yet, you need to get your hands on this game because it's a gem. There's nothing else I can really say about it. It's a gem that was basically well needed for a console that already had a lot of fire games on its lineup, and now it's just making me even more happy that I bought a PlayStation 4, which I couldn't really say too much previously because I've only played a handful of titles like Final Fantasy VII Remake earlier this year, and then that's about it. That was the only thing I was looking forward to. I got this, now we're more than halfway through the year, and it's been more than worth the purchase. So overall, we're going to be going over some cons because you got to start off bad, you got to end with the good. Then we're going to get into the pros, and then after that, we're going to talk about everything else I love this game, from the combat, the art direction, everything else in between, because this game was ridiculous from start to finish. Let's go. Boo the bad, boo, boo. So starting off with pretty much some easy to note cons or negatives, drawbacks, shortcomings, whatever you want to call them, that's kind of stopping this game from being a full 10 out of 10 in my personal opinion. Initially, it's the unskippable cutscenes. I thought this was something that I had just missed. I thought there was just, something I was just tripping on, or I, didn't understand that there was a button I could press. But when you press literally every button throughout every bit of every cutscene and nothing happens except for you to choose if you want subtitles or not, that's kind of a problem. I mean, I get the fact that you want to make sure that your players are able to understand and really grasp more of what's happening in the story. Unskippable cutscenes in 2020 is a little bit more of a drawback for most major games because everybody doesn't want to sit through, whatever bit of plot development that's going on. Some people want to get straight through to the action. That really kind of drew this back for me, so that's a bit of a problem. Secondly, I would just go off the point that there are a lot of repetitive objectives in this game. I understand that there's only so many unique things you can tailor toward, like a sneaking, assassination type gameplay that also allows you to openly challenge enemies and whatnot. But a lot of these objectives were directly the same. It'd be like you would start at one point and then track somebody up the hill or up a mountainside or up a road or whatever. Maybe just how you go about that tracking, or maybe just making it you just get straight to the combat would be a little bit more preferable in the future. I would just say overall, going straight from seeing a mission somewhere and it's literally just walking to one location, opening up somebody's house, or looking at a essentially a bloodbath or a murder scene, that was a huge bit of what almost every other mission was in this game if it wasn't directly a story mission. So mission variety or mission unique, I don't even know if uniqueness is the right word or a word, but I would say, just a little bit more variety in choice of how you would start and finish your missions would be good for another installment or more games from Sucker Punch. Overall, though, I am glad that this list of cons is pretty short because it's just more so like a little bit of more so how the game ends up flowing together, or how your ability to make choices is what comes to either fruition or to a good feel at the end of either every fight, segment, story element, whatever. But other than that, I had a real issue with the fact that when I was in the middle of fighting, I felt like targeting and camera recenter options were pretty lackluster and almost like unavailable. I might be wrong, but I felt like whenever I was in the middle of fighting someone, I was always facing the front and my camera would not like recenter, or whoever I was facing, fighting, or targeting, my camera just wouldn't recenter, and that would kind of throw off the flow of combat a bit. So overall, maybe that's just me, that could just be me. Let me know in the comments or whatnot, but I had an issue with that. I couldn't recenter whoever I was facing, and that would kind of throw me off, and I would have to like switch off of targets almost immediately. Maybe that's the direction they were going for, but it was a little off-putting. So even though I had this list of cons, I am really grateful to be able to do this review because that's just about it. I really don't have a huge amount of complaints that came with this game. Some of them were mostly just like a few mechanics and a little bit of how they went with the direction for how you would complete or initiate missions, and it was just overall just a little bit of quality of life things I wish they had changed. So the segment for the bad is really easy to do when a game that pretty much covers so many things on a fundamental level to be done well. And that's why it's a lot easier for me to just be like, yo, this is just like 1, 2, 3 things that I really just didn't like, that I really hope that they fix. Or maybe it was just something I had missed on how to go about, relieving for myself in my own playthrough. But yeah, let's move on to the good. Bruh. Bruh. So this is a little bit more of the video where I'm just gonna I'm nerding out. I'm not even gonna lie to you. So when it comes down to it, this game covered so many things so well, in my opinion, that it's like it's the only reason why I could only come up with 3 or 4 things that I thought were just nagging me to a point to where I had to say something about it. This game's combat flows really well, especially once you learn how to master your 4 stances, to use them to properly counteract whatever type of enemy you're facing, from like swords, spears, cannons, like all kind of crazy stuff. But this game really rewards you for your knowledge and your use of how to pretty much use the rock, paper, scissors based system for stances. And once you get those down, and then you start getting more comfortable with using, specific moves in specific stances, you get better at using your weapons, knowing how to maintain them, when's the best situation to use them, and how you start using them basically to pick off enemies or to almost deal with enemies en masse. The game rewards you for your knowledge on your moveset and your tool set. So yeah, combat flows extremely well. I would just say that overall, I hope that there's a little bit more variety per stance, a little bit more of like how Devil May Cry does things. I know it's a little bit of an off comparison, but I just want more moves within the stances so I can, basically style a little bit more. I want to do a little bit more with combinations. You can do a lot as it is right now, but I would just say I would like to do a little bit more per stance as opposed to just being rock, paper, scissors based. I did not like the fact that each stance had to be used to be, to be used against a specific enemy, and I was basically punished with this unskippable little help tip, whatever you want to call it, kind of window. And that honestly threw me off a lot. It would slow the pace of combat. So as long as I could do more either in the future or once you master your tools that you already have in combat, you're picking off enemies en masse in like seconds at a time. It's kind of crazy, and it's really satisfying to go through using either your sword, your bow, longbow, your explosive weapons, or if you want to bait enemies to pretty much turn their backs on you so you can get the jump on them and assassinate them. Or once you start unlocking different types of moves, the amount of moves that you can unlock is pretty straightforward, but the legendary techniques that you unlock in this game, like, bro, look at this.
Yo! Yo! Yo, that was so cold!
But yeah, man, that's pretty much like that's just one example of all the kind of different crazy things that happen in this game, without going in and trying to spoil everything for you guys. But overall, like how this game strings together, it's pretty, well flowing and fluid combat with its unique art direction, the way that they develop the story, the way that they make you care about the characters. There's just like so many different things that just layer into each other and execute really well in different parts of the story. Side missions, they actually feel like they're worth doing because even though I mentioned earlier that some of them can feel a bit repetitive, what they reward you with so you can continue to grow and strengthen your character so he can achieve his end goal of pushing back the Mongol army, it's worth it. You get loads of materials of what you need to continue to craft and to continue to upgrade and continue to gain experience and all that stuff that you need from just committing to either the main story, different side events, and then as you had seen, like you can get different techniques that eventually help you just become a stronger samurai, assassin, warrior, which is really the whole premise of the game. It's you just trying to become as strong as possible to make sure that you're able to take every means of attack and every angle, every tool that you can use to face this new threat of the Mongols invading in Japan. So the story for Ghost of Tsushima was one of the more well-written stories of a game that I played in a few years. Final Fantasy VII Remake, in comparison, was a game that kind of has a lot of elements from an already pre-written story, and then it went from a lot of changes and deviations to the original. But this, as an original story for what is now the end life of the PlayStation 4 and being produced as a AAA title, it was really well written. It rounds itself out really well. It's linear enough in the initial phases of the game to keep you interested and to give you a decent enough direction to know what is going to happen, but there are enough twists of what happens with each individual story, the main story, and a lot of interactions between characters therein that will keep you interested through the end. And I'm just going to say this right now. If you think you know what's going on in the main story, and if you think you know what's going on with each character in the side story, you're wrong until something happens. You think you know until something crazy happens, so it's definitely worth the playthrough. The story is definitely enough for me to wish for more, either for this game or for more games like this. Sucker Punch is really they did I don't know how else to say, they did a hell of a job with this game. Like, at the end of the day, I definitely want more games placed in different time periods, or I want a continuation of this one, because as I understand, this was just like the initial like attempt for an invasion. So there's definitely more that can come through it. I don't want to spoil the story for you guys, but as it goes for, historic points in history, in Japan's history, this was pretty big. From what's being, written out, I was actually very unaware of this. I didn't know this was even something to have referenced, so this is pretty cool for me to get a little bit of a cue in for a different part of the world and, their story, their history, and a lot of their culture that, seems to be really well researched and well made into an action game that I can kind of sit back and be like, man, that's cool. I never knew that, this part of the world was, viewing things like this, or that people had taken, honor so seriously during this period of Japan's history. And seeing that some people would live and die by these codes is like kind of crazy, because most modern Americans would just be like, yo, we got to do what we got to do, we got to shake and bake and keep it moving. But this story is definitely well written, and it's one that's going to keep your attention the whole way through. It's never missing a beat as far as it goes for pacing, and it's a story that's going to keep you well wrapped in the development of almost every other interaction with every other character that you get introduced to. So definitely hit it up for the story too. In conclusion, though, I would definitely have to say that overall this game is a strong 9 out of 10. So it's a game that's going to be worth your own playthrough for your own opinion. But if you want my reference, this was one of the handful of games that's come out on this generation of consoles that I felt like I had to play to 100% completion. I was like, man, I was all the way enthralled from every bit of story, even with the slight drawbacks that I felt that were a part of like the initial gameplay from, not being able to skip a cutscene or just the targeting or whatever. The actual story, the characters, the art, the music, everything from this game from like top to bottom was well rounded out, well studied, well developed. I could only find just a couple things that were honestly wrong with this game, and there's never going to be a perfect game, but if this game is going to come as close to it as possible when it comes to this generation of gaming, as far as it goes for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 and current PC titles, this game is definitely up there. Like, if I had to say for at minimum on PS4 right now, it's gonna probably end up being like top 5 titles for PS4. I can't say top 5 of all time. It hasn't quite had that kind of time to marinate and go over time yet. But if it becomes a series, or if this is a starting point for many games to come like it, Ghost of Tsushima is an extremely strong jump off point for Sucker Punch Studios for the next generation to come. They've already given us great games like Sly Cooper, and they did Infamous as well. So this is just another chalk to them, because I mean they do nothing but make bangers. And yeah, if you want my final recommendation, 9 out of 10. It's going to be a game that's going to definitely keep you busy for a decent amount of hours. I would say between at least 50 to 60 base content wise. If they ever choose to do more, I'm going to be amongst the first for the download. So if you guys want to see or hear more reviews, just let me know. Leave a like. Leave a comment. I want to see some discussions on what your favorite parts of the game and what some drawbacks you thought, were definitely prevalent to this game. It's my first one in which I've, played from Sucker Punch to this level of completion. I might have to go back and see what else they have in their catalog just so I can hit it up and see what else they have to offer. It's a really strong showing from that studio, and I was glad to take part of this. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one.
Oh